My research has been focused on what happened to African societies at the moment of the transatlantic slave trade. So how does it affect politics, economics, social life, and so on. When we think about the transatlantic slave trade, we tend to think what happened to people when they arrive in the Americas. So we talk a lot about slavery, we talk about racism, we talk about inequalities, but we tend to forget that African societies also had to cope with losing so many people. The region that I work on it's Benguela in West Central Africa. So nowadays it's in central Angola. Benguela lost more than 760,000 people into the transatlantic slave trade in 300 years. And we have to think that each one of those 760,000 people, they had families, they loved someone, they were loved by other people, they had productive roles. They were farmers, they were carpenters, they work on leather, they did things productive to their societies. My work tries to understand how did people cope to that with losing so many young and healthy people into the transatlantic slave trade. The long-term consequence of the transatlantic slave trade in this region, in the region of Benguela, I would say are political instability. There were lots of states that collapsed, states that disappeared. Lots of people had to resettle in search of safety, looking for a safer place to live. I work with primary sources that are familiar to historians working in different parts of the world, so I use lots of colonial records, official letters, wills and inventories. The transatlantic slave trade was a business, it was a legal business, so we have lots of information on the number of people put on board of a slave ship, for example, because you had to pay taxes over the number of people on board of a slave ship. So we have lots of quantitative data related to the transatlantic slave trade. At Notre Dame, not only I have support from my department, from my colleagues, but I would say from the university as a whole that see the value and the importance of doing research about the past and about regions of the world that are not necessarily considered important ones from a market perspective, such as Africa. It's important to incorporate Africa to our understanding of the world. If we really want to be global, we cannot exclude the African continent in the process. So I'm very grateful to be in a place where people see my work as valuable and making a contribution.